I created this mind map exclusively for my students who are participating in the PM Distilled PMP preparatory program. So as we read through the project management body of knowledge towards the agile part of it, that is the fag end of the PMBOK, a lot of things have gone in there, but then it is not high. I felt that it is not highly structured. So I wanted to give it structure so that people can understand it better and recollect it very, very easily. So I have borrowed the initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling and closing process groups from the predictive project management, and I am organizing the knowledge of Agile into these 5 process groups of initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling and closing. So like every project, even an Agile project has to be initiated first, then it has to be planned at a project level, at a release level, at a sprint level, then it has to be executed as per Agile, and it has to be monitored and controlled on a daily basis, at a iteration level, at a release level, even at a product level, and it has to be formally closed again at a iteration level, at a release level, and at the final product level. So under initiation, before venturing into an Agile project, the first thing is creating the Agile mindset. All the stakeholders should think alike about the whole Agile initiative. And then it is about the life cycle selection. Okay, should we go with but before proceeding, okay, now under Agile mindset, the easiest way to get a unified Agile mindset is to educate people on the Agile manifesto, Agile principles, and the Agile family, an introduction to what is really Agile, what is the meaning of Agile, is it a methodology or is it a collection of frameworks. So a common understanding of these things will help to create an Agile mindset at the organization level. Then life cycle selection, when to go for Agile and when not to go for Agile. If the uncertainty is very high and the risk is also very high, then that project is the right candidate for Agile. And if everything is crystal clear, if the scope is very clear and the risk is also very low, then there is absolutely no harm to go with predictive styles. Whereas if the uncertainty is high and the risk is high, then it is better to go with Agile, or it can be a hybrid model as well, where certain parts of the project can be predictive or certain parts can be Agile, or you start with Agile for some time, and once we have absolute clarity, then maybe the rest of the project can be predictive. So it is up to the team. So a common understanding of this must be there among stakeholders. Then the characteristics of project life cycles, Agile and hybrid. It can be a good strategy, instead of moving from predictive to Agile directly. From predictive, you can move on to a kind of hybrid where you follow both Agile and predictive within the same project. And if things are working fine, then it is a good idea to move on to Agile. Then creating an Agile environment. The key thing in the Agile environment is servant leadership. And we'll see the role of the PM also in an Agile environment. Servant leadership roles and responsibilities. the servant leader is primarily a facilitator. The key job is removing impediments faced by the team. A servant leader facilitates others' contribution. A servant leader provides agile education and mentoring, and a servant leader must be really good in technical project management. When we say technical project management, it is about the 10 knowledge areas of PMBOK, like scope management, schedule management, risk management, procurement, quality, stakeholder. All those things comes under technical project management. So irrespective of whether you're following waterfall or agile, these skill sets and knowledge is very, very important to be successful, because one of the key roles of a servant leader is removing impediments, and that will be impossible without the contribution of everybody in the organization. So one need to be very good in the predictive project management before becoming a great agile project manager. So the terminology used for in the PMBOK for the knowledge of project management, it is categorized under technical project management. So here we are not talking about technology, we are talking about scope management, procurement management, communication management, risk management, quality management, stakeholder management, resource management. Those kind of things comes under technical project management. And a servant leader must help the team to celebrate even small successes. That is very, very important. Then the role of the project manager in agile environment. The usage of the term project manager is maybe disputable or controversial in the agile, but still we need to have one person, maybe called a scrum master or a agile master or whatever. That person is playing the role of a project manager. The primary difference of a project manager in the agile environment as well as in the predictive project management is, in the predictive project management, that person can be more of a command and control style, whereas in agile, the project managers must be a servant leader, a true servant leader first, to serve an agile team. Now, agile teams focus on rapid product development, 3 to 9 members. So if you need a very large team, let us say 100 members are required for a project, the project has to be subdivided into maybe 10 iterations running in parallel, and each comprising of around 9 members. The agile team members must be co-located. Again, this is drafted prior to COVID. The COVID time, teams are reinventing how to work more cohesively even in a distributed environment or when you work from home. The team members must be 100% dedicated to the project they are working in. The teams are self-managing. That means the teams will decide how they are going to do the work. The teams are cross-functional. That means, there may be a technical person, there can be a quality person, there can be a documentation expert, there can be a business analyst, but then everybody is known as a team member. So team members with diverse skill set come together and work together in an agile team. So hence we call it as a cross-functional team. Produce a functional product increments frequently. That means every iteration they increment the product, and there is collective ownership. All the team members own the success and failure of the iteration. A high degree of collaboration is required to be successful in agile teams. And agile roles, we have very limited roles. I will see that. Now, for collaboration, some of the tools and techniques are pairing. You may pair a programmer with a QA guy, or an experienced person with an inexperienced person, or two programmers will work on the same code. That is examples of pairing. Then we have swarming and mobbing practices as well. Then Agile roles, we have just 3 roles: cross-functional team members, product owner, and the team facilitator, or the Agile project manager, or the Scrum Master. Yeah, it's all same. Then Agile roles, cross-functional team members, generalizing specialist. So the Agile team members may have one core competence, but along with that they have other skills as well. I may be in the team because of my programming skills. At the same time, I may have testing skills as well as a secondary skill. Then we have the product owner and the team facilitator, or the Scrum Master, or the Agile project manager. It's all same. For the teams to be successful, team workspaces conducive for agile work is also important. So as discussed before, co-located teams was a prerequisite. Now, but because of the pandemic and stuff like that, co-located teams may not be possible. So teams are reinventing of how to mimic that co-located feeling, even when you work in a distributed manner, or even when you work from home. So when you are distributed, okay, they use tools like fishbowl, windows, or remote pairing to create that feeling of co-location. Then we get into planning. So in Agile, the planning happens at multiple levels. So we have to create a project charter and charter the project team. Then at a product level, we have to create the backlog, and we have to define the roadmap, which product, which feature will get into which iteration, and the tentative start and end dates for this iteration. All these things put together, we have the roadmap. Then when it comes to a single iteration, there is a detailed iteration planning process. So the planning is at an organization level to roll out Agile at the organization. Then the planning is at a product level or at the project level, and the planning is at a iteration level as well. So the first activity of planning is creation of a backlog, and which gets refined continuously. Then we have to decide on the roadmap, and it is known as release planning. Primarily, we have to plan the number of sprints. After how many sprint is same as iteration. So I may use the term sprint and iteration intermittently. So both are same. In Scrum, it is sprint, whereas the general Agile terminology is iteration. So a roadmap has to be planned, and a release planning happens. Then we get into iteration planning. Iteration planning is a detailed planning of the iteration. Then execution mode. The whole execution happens in iteration. Then we have, within the iteration, we have a daily stand-up meeting, and at the end of the iteration, we have the iteration reviews, and in between there can be product demonstrations and reviews happening. Then we have retrospectives. That means at the end of the sprint or iteration, there is a retrospective exercise. And the other practices used or found useful during the iteration are continuous integration. So on a daily basis, continuously, as and when something is ready, that gets integrated into the final product kind of. That is continuous integration, which will result in better technology risk, and which will bring in better transparency about the progress of work. And test at all levels. We are talking about unit testing, integration testing, system testing. Then we have acceptance test driven development. So the acceptance tests for the user stories are written up front, and you develop the user story in such a way that the test becomes redundant. That means whatever is the test must fail, the test must pass, or the test must become redundant. Then test driven development, here we are talking about automating the unit level tests. Then a behavior driven development. So if the developed component behaves in a particular way, that is the proof. Then that kind of an approach, we call it as behavior driven development. Then spikes are frequently used as a mechanism for testing the proof of concept. Now for a new product, let us say I'm putting the architecture in place. So before building too many features, I want to test to see whether the architecture is working fine. Then we create the architecture, we create all the layers of the architecture, and we take a small functionality which cuts across all the layers of the architecture. And if that particular functionality is working fine, then we know that the architecture is the right thing. So we use spikes extensively to manage technical risk in a project. Then monitoring and controlling. Monitoring and controlling happens on a daily basis using the daily stand-up meeting. Then we have a lot of tools and techniques like burn down chart, burn up charts, and the Kanban board. So all these things are used for monitoring and controlling. So the key thing about Agile is everything is empirical in nature. That means everything is represented as numbers. So we have this burn down chart. On the y-axis can be the story points, or it can be the effort, and on the x-axis is always the timeline. So burn down chart is explained using a different video. So here I just want to mention that burn down chart is one of the monitoring and control tools. Then we have burn up charts and feature charts. Then in burn up charts we have product backlog burn up charts. Then feature charts, under that the common one is the cumulative flow diagrams. And value based, earn value management, or the S-curves of earn value, can be used very effectively in the Agile, and many teams are using them successfully. And we have the Kanban board as well to track the progress on to be done, being done, and done kind of thing. Then comes closing. This can be closing the sprint, or it can be closing the iteration, or closing the project. Everything happens with a retrospective. So this is my way of simplifying complexity. Instead of talking about a lot of things, it is easy now to remember Agile Distilled. So like every other project, an Agile project also can pass through the phases of initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closing. And initiation is you have to create the Agile environment and the mindset. So initiation talks about that first, and then it talks about how to initiate a project specific initiation. Planning, again, it can be at a product level, at a release level, at an iteration level. Then execution and monitoring and controlling and closing. The link to the corresponding page is given at the description space of this video. So you can go there and click on the link so that it will take you to the corresponding page of Agile Distilled at pmri.in. Thank you very much.